Hey everyone, I know I shouldn't be sharing this, but I can't keep it inside anymore. If you're watching, please like and subscribe. It helps me feel a little less alone with what I'm about to confess. A few months ago, my son came back home after years away, and now our quiet house is filled with a secret joy and forbidden happiness that I never imagined possible. It started so innocently, or at least that's what I told myself. I'm a 42-year-old single mother working a dead-end office job that barely covers the bills. Wake up exhausted, come home to an empty house, eat dinner alone, and scroll through my phone until I fall asleep. The loneliness had become unbearable, like a heavy weight pressing on my chest every night. I thought life would stay that way forever until he returned. My son, now 22 and so much taller and stronger than I remembered, walked through the door with that same warm smile. The moment he hugged me, I caught the faint scent of his cologne mixed with fresh rain from outside, a scent that instantly took me back to when he was little, but now it stirred something entirely different, something warm and dangerous low in my belly. He was no longer my little boy, he was a man, and the house suddenly felt too small for the way he looked at me. I pulled back from that hug a second too late, my hands still resting on his arms, feeling the solid warmth of him through his shirt. My heart was already beating faster than it should, and I told myself it was just relief, just a mother happy to have her child home. But when his eyes met mine, steady and deep, something inside me shifted. The air between us felt thicker, charged, like the room itself was holding its breath. That first evening we sat at the kitchen table, the one that used to be covered in his school drawings. Now it was just us, two plates, the soft hum of the fridge in the background. He talked about his years away, his voice low and calm, and I found myself leaning in closer just to catch every word. His laugh, that deep, easy laugh, it filled the empty spaces it carried for so long. I laughed too, but inside I was already whispering to myself, "This is normal, this is fine, don't overthink." The way his knee almost brushed mine under the table. Later that night I stood in the hallway, watching him carry his bags upstairs. The way his shoulders moved under the fabric, the quiet confidence in his steps, it made my throat tight. I turned away quickly, pressing a hand to my chest as if that could steady the sudden flutter there. Yes, your son," I reminded myself in the mirror, staring at my own flushed cheeks. "Just your son." But the words felt fragile, like they might break if I said them out loud again. The next morning the house smelled like coffee he'd made before I even woke up. He handed me a mug, his fingers grazing mine for the briefest moment, and that small touch sent a spark racing up my arm. I thanked him, voice a little too soft, and sat across from him at the table. We talked about nothing important. The weather, my job, his plans, but every pause in the conversation felt heavy with something unsaid. His eyes kept finding mine, holding just a second longer than they used to. I told myself it was the joy of reunion, the comfort of having someone else breathing in these walls again. Yet when he reached across to pass the sugar, his arm so close I could feel the heat coming off his skin, my breath caught. Focusing on the steam rising from my cup, but the warmth in my belly wouldn't fade. It was wrong to notice these things, so wrong. Still, I couldn't stop the quiet thrill that came with every shared glance, every accidental nearness. By the third day the house no longer felt empty. It felt alive in a way that scared me. He moved through the rooms with that easy grace, and I found myself pausing in doorways just to watch him for a moment too long. When he offered to help with dinner, standing beside me at the counter, our shoulders almost touching, I felt the pull again, that dangerous gravity drawing me nearer. I laughed at something he said, the sound shaky in my own ears, and for a heartbeat our eyes locked. The kitchen light caught the line of his jaw, and I had to look down at the cutting board, heart hammering. "This is just happiness," I kept repeating silently. "Just a mother and son reconnecting." But deep down I knew the lie was already cracking, because the ache blooming inside me was the kind a mother should feel. And then, as we finished clearing the table that night, he turned to me with that warm smile again, his hand resting lightly on my shoulder for a second longer than necessary. "Mom," he said softly, voice wrapping around me like the scent of rain still clinging to him. My skin tingled under his touch, and in that moment the secret joy felt almost too bright to hide and far too dangerous to ignore. I told myself it was nothing more than relief at having him back under our roof again. But every time he wandered through the living room in that loose tank top, the fabric clinging just enough to show the broad line of his shoulders, The quiet shift of muscle beneath his skin, my pulse would skip in a way that left me unsteady. I kept catching myself replaying that first long hug from the airport, the solid warmth of his chest pressed against me, how safe and strangely alive it made every inch of me feel. Standing alone in front of the bathroom mirror later, I whispered the words out loud. This is wrong, watching my own lips tremble. Yet I couldn't stop the extra glances, the way my smile lingered a second too long whenever he looked my way. The obsession started so quietly I almost missed it. Just small things. The way I'd find reasons to pass by his room when he was changing after a run, catching the faint sheen of sweat on his neck before I forced my eyes away. Or how I'd linger in the kitchen doorway, heart beating too fast, simply because he was there reaching for a glass, his arm lifting in that easy, confident motion. I told myself any mother would feel happy seeing her grown son so strong and sure, but deep down the excuses felt thin, like tissue paper over a flame. Evenings became our quiet ritual. We'd settle on the couch for those old movies we used to watch when he was small, the room dim except for the flickering screen. His leg would accidentally brush mine under the shared blanket, and that brief contact sent a sharp spark racing up my thigh, stealing my breath for a heartbeat. One night he found that dusty CD of the song we used to dance to years ago, the soft melody filling the air like a memory come alive. I laughed it off, pretending to tease him about his terrible rhythm back then, but inside my skin was tingling, every nerve aware of how close he sat. The steady heat radiating from his body. I wanted so badly to lean in just a little, to let that warmth sink deeper. "Yes, your son," the voice in my head kept screaming, raw and desperate, while the loneliness Sid carried for years pulled me the other way, stronger every passing minute. I lay awake most nights after that, staring at the ceiling fan turning lazy circles in the dark, my body aching with a restless need I refused to name even in the silence of my own thoughts. "This is sick," it'd whisper into the pillow, cheeks burning with shame. What kind of person am I turning into? The guilt pressed down like a weight on my chest, making it hard to breathe, yet it never quite drowned out the emptiness that had lived here before he returned. Every morning I woke with fresh resolve, promising myself I would keep more distance, be stricter, more careful. I'd avoid sitting too close, keep conversations light and quick. But then I'd step into the bathroom and catch the clean, warm scent of his body still lingering on the towel he'd left draped over the rack. My fingers would brush the fabric almost without thinking, and every promise I'd made would dissolve like sugar in hot tea. Or I'd find his worn hoodie tossed over the back of a chair and, when no one could see, lift it to my face, breathing in the faint trace of him, that mix of soap and something unmistakably his. The softness against my skin felt like both the gentlest comfort and the heaviest sin at once, leaving me trembling, torn between pulling away and holding on tighter. The days blurred together in this careful dance of nearness and retreat. I'd catch him watching me sometimes when he thought I wasn't looking, his gaze soft yet heavy with something I didn't dare examine too closely. My heart would race, a wild flutter I tried to blame on nothing more than maternal pride, but the truth was whispering louder now, impossible to ignore completely. The house felt warmer, smaller, every shared space charged with an electricity that made even ordinary moments feel dangerous and alive. One afternoon while folding laundry, his scent still clinging to the clothes in my hands, I paused, pressing the fabric closer for just a second too long. It became shallow, the ache inside blooming hotter despite every warning my mind threw at me. How much longer could I pretend this was only joy at having my son home? The line between what was allowed and what I secretly craved was already blurring, growing thinner with every glance, every accidental touch, every stolen breath of him that left me hungry for more. And just as I set the laundry aside, trying to steady myself, he walked into the room wearing that same tank top, hair still damp from the shower, and asked if I wanted to watch another movie tonight. His voice low and warm, eyes finding mine with that quiet intensity that made the air between us feel suddenly too thick to breathe through. The laundry forgotten, I nodded before my mind could catch up, my voice barely above a whisper as I said yes, we watch something tonight. He chose an old film we used to love, the kind with slow building tension and stolen glances on screen that mirrored everything I was trying not to feel. We settled on the couch, closer than necessary, the cushions dipping under our weight until our shoulders brushed. The room was dim, lit only by the flickering glow, and outside rain began tapping against the windows, soft at first, then insistent. His arm rested along the back of the couch, not quite touching me, but close enough that I could sense the warmth radiating from him, pulling at me like gravity I couldn't fight. "You look beautiful even like this," he murmured during a quiet scene, his eyes drifting from the screen to me in my faded pajamas, the ones I'd worn for years without a second thought. "Mom, I missed hearing you laugh like that." His fingers grazed my hand when he passed the remote, lingering a heartbeat longer than they should, sending a spark up my arm that made my breath hitch. Heat flooding my cheeks, and pulled back slightly, telling myself it was nothing, just a son's affection. But my body leaned in anyway, craving that brief contact, the way his skin felt against mine even through fabric. "Stop this," the voice in my head pleaded, sharp and ashamed, while another part of me, lonely and aching, whispered to let it happen just a little longer. I was his mother, for heaven's sake. What was I becoming? Trembling at a simple touch like some love-struck girl. Yet every time he shifted, his hand found by my lower back as he reached for a blanket, steady and warm, pressing just enough to make my pulse race. I forgot how to breathe normally, each inhale shallow, filled with the faint scent of his cologne mixing with the rain-soaked air drifting in. The compliments kept coming, soft and unexpected, wrapped in that low voice that made the storm outside feel like it was raging inside my chest too. "You've always had the prettiest smile," he'd say, or "I love how you light up when you talk about those old books." Each word chipped away at the walls I'd rebuilt that morning, leaving me flushed and restless. Why mind a battlefield of this can't be and don't stop? Glass after glass, the liquid warming my veins, loosening the tight knot of guilt in my stomach. Thunder rolled low and distant, vibrating through the house, matching the unsteady beat of my heart. We talked about nothing and everything, his laughter easy, drawing mine out until the room felt smaller, the distance between us shrinking with every shared sip. Then he set his glass down, turning fully toward me, eyes darker in the low light, holding something far deeper than a son's gaze. "Mom, I've been thinking about you every night since I came back," he said softly, the words landing like a confession that stole the air from my lungs. The wine made my tongue heavy, my inhibitions fraying at the edges. I wanted to laugh it off, to remind him who we were, but the thunder cracked outside and my resolve crumbled with it. He leaned in slowly, giving me every chance to pull away, but I didn't. His lips met mine, tentative at first, then deepening with a hunger that tasted of wine and rain and years of unspoken closeness. The familiar scent of him enveloped me, warm and intoxicating, and in that instant the last fragile barrier inside me shattered. No turning back, no pretending this was innocent anymore. My hands found his shoulders trembling, as the almost moments we danced around ignited into something unstoppable. That first night blurred into a haze of overwhelming sensation, his touch on my skin both shocking and achingly right, waves of forbidden joy crashing through me until I could think of nothing else. We surrendered to it fully, the house quiet except for our shared breaths and the fading storm. Afterward, in the soft afterglow, I held his warm body close, my fingers tracing lazy patterns on his back, whispering against his chest, "We can never tell anyone. This has to stay our secret." He nodded, promising with quiet intensity that it would, his arms tightening around me like he never wanted to let go. For the first time in so long, the house felt alive with a real, pulsing happiness, even as guilt threaded through it like shadows at the edges of light. I lay there, heart still racing, wondering how something so wrong could feel like coming home. But as dawn crept closer, a quiet fear stirred deep inside. What if this joy carried a price we weren't ready to pay? What if one stolen moment like this was only the beginning of something that could unravel everything? Our days slipped into a secret rhythm that felt like breathing for the first time in years. Mornings he'd brush past me in the kitchen, his shoulder grazing mine just long enough for heat to bloom under my skin, while I poured coffee with hands that refused to stay steady. Afternoons he fixed the leaky faucet he'd ignored for months, sleeves rolled up, laughing softly when I handed him the wrong Toulon purpose just to hear that sound again. Evenings we cooked together, bodies orbiting each other in the small space, elbows touching, breath sissing without a word. The house no longer echoed with emptiness. I felt younger in ways I couldn't explain, lighter, as if his presence had peeled away layers of quiet exhaustion he'd carried alone. His laugh pulled mine out from hiding. his hand on the small of my back when he reached for something sent sparks racing up my spine, leaving me breathless and pretending it was nothing. Late at night, dimmed and the world outside faded, the air between us thickened with something magnetic, pulling us close until distance became unbearable. We surrendered to those moments, wrapped in shared warmth and whispered promises that tomorrow would be careful. No one would know. No one could, yet every sunrise brought the guilt crashing back, heavier than before, whispering that this fragile paradise rested on ground that could crack open at any second. I told myself we were consenting adults, that no outsiders were being harmed, that the loneliness Sid drowned in before his return had been far crueler. But deep down the truth gnawed at me. This happiness carried teeth. It was built on a line we had crossed that could never be uncrossed. One rainy afternoon, I overheard him on the phone with an old friend, voice low and amused through the cracked door. "Things with Mom. They're different now. Like, really different." The words landed like ice water down my back. Panic surged through me, sharp and suffocating. Was our secret already leaking out, turning into careless jokes between boys? I pressed myself against the wall, heart hammering, straining to hear more, but he changed the subject with a quick laugh that only twisted the knife deeper. By evening the fear had settled into my bones, cold and unrelenting. That night we lay angled in the quiet dark after another wave of overwhelming closeness, his arms heavy around me, skin still warm from shared surrender. The old movie soundtrack drifted faintly from the living room, the one we used to watch together when he was small, innocent notes now laced with unbearable irony. His scent surrounded me, familiar yet suddenly heavy with consequence, like gravity threatening to pull us both under. Tears slipped free before I could stop them, silent at first, then shaking my shoulders as the full weight of what we were doing crashed over me. He held me tighter, murmuring soft questions I held an answer, his breath warm against my hair. I cried for the joy that had awakened something deep inside me, for the terrifying beauty of feeling truly seen and wanted again. And I cried for the devastating fear that one wrong word, one slipped glance, could shatter our world and leave nothing but ruin in its wake. How could something that made me feel so alive also make me ache with the possibility of losing everything? Equal parts terror and wonder, leaving me forever changed. I still wrestle with the morality of it in the quiet hours before dawn, turning the same questions over and over until my mind spins. But the hollow silence that filled these rooms before he came home, that was a different kind of death. Tell me honestly in the comments, do you think I should stop this before it consumes us both? Or is love sometimes worth the risk no matter who it's with? Be raw with me, and if the pull of our story has you wanting more of these dangerous, intoxicating days we share in secret, hit like and subscribe. I might just whisper the next hidden chapters. The ones where the ache only grows deeper. What if this secret joy is the only real thing I've felt in years, and letting it go would break me more than keeping it ever could?